Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the Master Blueprint for Teaching, Engineering the Perfect Lesson.
So, do you have the blueprint for the perfect lesson? Look, if you're an educator, an instructional designer, or literally anyone who steps in front of a classroom every day, we need to have a real, honest conversation about the monumental daily challenge of crafting truly engaging lessons. Because we've all been there, right? You spend hours, maybe your entire Sunday, crafting what you think is a killer lesson plan. But then you finally present it, and you're just met with unmotivated students, blank stares, or total confusion. It is incredibly frustrating. You know your subject matter inside and out, but transferring that knowledge sometimes feels like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. Well, what if I told you that teaching isn't just some mysterious art form, but a highly structural science? Consider this Explainer your premium professional development toolkit, giving you high-level exposure to the absolute best instructional theories out there. We are going to give you the proven architecture for the perfect lesson.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visually demystifies a trap that so many educators fall into, confusing learning theories with instructional theories. Notice the concentric circles here. Right there at the center, we have learning theories, things like behaviorism or constructivism. That is all about what happens inside a student's head. It explains how a human organism actually learns. But here's the thing, as a teacher, you can't magically reach into a student's brain. You operate on the next layer out, instructional theories. These are the prescriptive, specific events and strategies outside the learner that you actually execute to facilitate learning. For example, knowing that students learn by connecting new information to old information, that's a learning theory. But you creating an advanced organizer graphic to force that connection, that is an instructional theory in action.
So, to build our flawless lesson plan, we clearly need the right structural support. Here is our visual roadmap for today. We're going to look at the three master architects of instructional theory: Robert Gagne, David Merrill, and John M. Keller. And please, think of these not as dry academic concepts, but as three essential, highly practical pillars for your daily teaching. Gagne focuses on the sequence of cognitive processes. Merrill focuses on categorizing the exact micro-elements of what you are teaching, and Keller focuses on the human element, motivation. Together, they form the complete foundation of our master blueprint. Let's take a look at our first architect. Think of Robert Gagne as the pipeline of your lesson plan. Introduced back in 1965, his theory is famous for the 9 events of instruction. See, Gagne realized that different types of learning, whether it's memorizing a historical fact or learning a complex physical skill, require entirely different procedures. But the underlying strength of his theory is that it gives us a rigorous pipeline. It moves us from merely observing how learners process information to actually forcing that processing to happen through 9 distinct external events. And the sequence absolutely matters. It starts with initially gaining attention, then informing learners of the objective so they actually know the target. Next, you stimulate recall of prior learning, basically anchoring the new idea to an old one. From there, you present the content, provide learning guidance, elicit performance, and then, this is absolutely crucial, you provide immediate feedback before assessing performance and enhancing retention. Gagne's pipeline structures this cognitive sequence perfectly. It guarantees that the information flows exactly where it needs to go, step by step.
Okay, let's dive into this next pillar, David Merrill. If Gagne is the pipeline, Merrill's component display theory is the information grid that sorts exactly what goes into that pipeline. Merrill looks at the micro-elements of instruction by mapping learning on 2 distinct dimensions. First up, content. Are you teaching a concrete fact, an overarching concept, a step-by-step procedure, or a foundational principle? Second is performance. Do you want the student to just remember it, use it in a specific situation, or find a whole new application for it? By plotting your lesson on this grid, you perfectly match the exact content type to the right performance expectation. You no longer just vaguely teach history or math. You teach a specific concept with a specific, targeted performance goal. It essentially takes all the guesswork out of your objectives and replaces it with absolute precision.
But here's the reality. You can have the best pipeline and the most precise grid in the world, and none of it will matter if the machine won't turn on. Enter John M. Keller's ARCS model. This is the fuel that powers the whole structure. Introduced in 1983 and grounded in expectancy value theory, Keller proves something totally vital for educators. Motivation isn't just some innate personality trait that a student either has or doesn't have. It's actually a structural process you can design. Just look at the core equation on the right. Motivation equals value, which is fulfilling a student's personal needs, plus expectation, which is an optimistic belief in their own success. Let that really sink in for a second. Motivation equals value plus expectation. Keller breaks this equation down into 4 essential, actionable steps: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. Let's do a fast-paced feature pitch of this incredible engine, starting with the A.
Attention! This is exactly how you initially capture your learner's wandering eyes. It is the absolute prerequisite to learning. You don't just politely ask for attention, you have to seize it. Keller suggests using perceptual arousal, like presenting a highly surprising fact, a sudden shift in the classroom environment, or a jarring visual. Or you can use inquiry arousal, hitting them with a challenging, brain-teasing problem or a compelling mystery right at the top of the lesson. You literally have to aggressively break through the noise of their busy day before you can attempt to teach them a single thing.
Once you actually have their eyes, you must immediately secure their minds with relevance. If your students are sitting there wondering, why do I even need to know this? Well, you've already lost them. Relevance bridges that massive gap between classroom content and the real world. It proves the lesson's worth. You have to clearly and immediately answer the critical question, what will this subject matter do for me today or tomorrow? By matching the lesson to their direct needs, connecting it to their personal experiences, and showing future usefulness, you make the content undeniably valuable to their actual everyday lives.
Next up is confidence. Have you ever noticed that students who think they're going to fail almost always do? Keller points out that we must actively build a success expectation. Because if the challenge is too high, anxiety takes over. If it's too low, they just get bored. You have to design your instruction with super clear milestones so that students feel they actually have control over their learning process. When they clearly understand the requirements for success and feel that their focused effort will directly and safely lead to that success, they let their guard down. They take true ownership of the journey.
Finally, we wrap up the engine with satisfaction. Now, I know ARCs might sound a bit like a cheesy self-help mantra: attention, relevance, confidence, satisfaction, but I assure you it is rigorously tested psychological fuel. Satisfaction is all about the exact science of sustaining that motivation to the very end of the lesson. It means providing targeted feedback, celebrating the wins, and ensuring that the learner actually feels good about what they've achieved. If the intrinsic or extrinsic rewards of completing the task meet their expectations, I promise you they will come back to your next lesson ready to learn all over again.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we bring it all together into our completed master blueprint. What is absolutely crucial to understand here is that Gagne, Merrill, and Keller are not competitors fighting for your attention. They are a unified, comprehensive toolkit. Gagne builds the 9-event pipeline, structuring the step-by-step cognitive sequence of the event. Merrill provides the 2D grid, meticulously crafting and sorting the specific materials flowing through that pipeline. And Keller provides the ARC's fuel, influencing and sustaining the human drive required to push that material all the way to the finish line. To summarize this explainer, I really want you to look at this completed structure. Start thinking of yourself not just as a teacher, but as an instructional designer. And an instructional designer is exactly like an engineer building a house. An engineer doesn't just guess how a roof stays up, right? They rely on the proven laws of physics. Similarly, you now have the proven principles of learning and instruction at your fingertips. You map the external actions to trigger internal processing, you pair the exact right content with the exact right performance, and you systematically sustain the learner's human motivation. You have the physics and you have the plans for a flawless classroom experience. We've exposed you to the absolute highest levels of instructional theory today. You now have the blueprint, you have the pipeline, you have the information grid, and you have the fuel. The only question left is, how are you going to take these theories out of this explainer and directly into your next lesson plan? What incredible learning experience are you going to build tomorrow? Thanks for joining us, and happy teaching!